Hi, this is Andy Burton for Keyboard Magazine, and I'm on tour with Stephen Van Zandt and Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul. We're on a U.S. tour right now, the Teacher Solidarity Tour 2018, and I'm here to talk a little bit about my keyboard rig that I'm using with the Disciples. So this is it. We'll start here with the Hammond. Now, this is a Hammond XK5. Inside the enclosure that they call the A3, which is the one that is the double manual enclosure with wooden legs. It's the closest in look and feel to a vintage B3. It's close to the actual the A model from the 1930s, which is why they call it the A3. I've transitioned away from using a vintage B3 in 122, Leslie 122 on the road, because I was having reliability issues with traveling and going to Europe, etc. So I discovered the XK5 and fell for it, and so now I'm a Hammond artist, and I'm happily using the A3 system, and everybody loves it. I'm able to get a much wider variety of tones than I was on the traditional B3, and I'm able to do things like MIDI, which is great, and it's super reliable, and it folds up. And the crew loves it, and the front of house sound loves it, and everybody loves it, and no one really particularly notices that it isn't real, quote unquote. Anyway, so yes, here's where I'd like to show you some of what I do with the A3 and how it fits into my rig. So how I get clean and dirty. So in a particular song, let's say let's do Soulfire here. All right, so. Now I've got digital overdrive, which is over here on the right side of the keys, which I can turn on and off with a button. But there's also tube overdrive. Now here I've got, this means it's going through a 12AU7 tube, which is inside. A 12AU7 is a type of vacuum tube. I can switch it to a 12AX7 or bypass it, or I can run through the AU7 and then the AX7, or vice versa, the AX7 into the AU7. These give you all different kinds of flavors of distortion. And then you can change the drive amount as much as you want. It gets louder and louder, and distorted-er and distorted-er. But over here, there's also a matching transformer emulation, which I can also use to increase the drive. So I've got all these things saved in each program for each song, so I get just the right amount of drive if I want it, or just a totally clean sound if I want it. And it's just basically just loading each program gives me that whole setup in a flash. Let me just show you a little bit of how this thing sounds. I get a nice clean tone. And I can get dirty real easy with the push of a button. And we have something like. And so I can get that without having to adjust Leslie volumes. The Leslie, which is back there, is a solid state 3300, and it's got a tube preamp, which I have set to very gentle, just a little bit of compression and warmth and coloration without going too deep into distortion. I get the distortion out of this machine, which has different kinds of tubes inside, as well as some digital emulations of distortion. So we move on over here. We have my trusty Nord Stage 2, and this has been part of my touring rigs for the past 6 years or so. I've got 3 of them. This one's been all around the world with me a few times. This is the nerve center of my rig, in that I choose programs on it, and it changes patches on this synth here, the OB6, which we'll get into, as well as my laptop here, where I've got Gig Performer running, and which is a system that allows me to play lots of different plugins. It's similar to MainStage by Apple. It's a little different, and I prefer to use this. So here we have the computer, and we have this program called Gig Performer. And when I change programs, you can see I get these virtual rack spaces, which then if I'm playing something, let's see, try something else. Let me find the right sound here. Yeah. So I have different elements of my sound, which all appear here. I can make sure that they're sending that signal, and I can adjust the various levels with the mouse if I need to, although I've got them all dialed in just right. So down here, we have a RAID system. This is a 3 terabyte solid state drive RAID. It's in a RAID 5 configuration, which actually has 4 drives, each of which is 1 terabyte. And you get a total of 3 terabytes, but you get a redundancy in that any one of these drives could fail, and the other 3 drives could keep working perfectly. And I could just pop in another drive, it will automatically reset itself and reconstruct what was on the other drive, which is pretty cool. And this gives me a data throughput. Well, it will load at 2 gigabytes per second, which is pretty darn fast. And here we have the audio interface. It's a universal audio arrow, and basically it's pretty straightforward. It's just a 2-channel interface. I've got the continuum, aka Irving, going into it, and I've just got a little bit of gain and a little bit of preamp emulation, tube preamp emulation to give it a little bit of character. And other than that, that's pretty much it. It's straightforward. And this is a Thunderbolt dock, a Thunderbolt 3 dock. Everything here is Thunderbolt 3. This actually provides power to both the Arrow and the Mac. The Mac is a late 2017 MacBook Pro with a 1 terabyte internal drive, and everything is Thunderbolt 3. So that's the rack, and it's absolutely stable, and I haven't had one hiccup yet. So all of those, this will change sounds based on program changes that I send it from the Nord. The Nord is good for some piano sounds and some synth sounds. Piano is covered by our other keyboard player, Lowell Levinger, aka Banana. He also plays some Wurlitzer, although I do play a little bit of piano during the set. It's all from the Nord piano library. So that's all right. So that's the Nord. Then we come to the analog goodness here. This is a sequential OB6, which is an analog synth. It's 6 voices, and it has discrete VCOs, which is voltage controlled oscillators, which gives it a nice warm, fat sound. And I use that in a number of ways as part of the set. Here's one thing. This is actually a blend that I use. That is the OB6. That's good for soloing too. But the synth sounds are all over the place, and a lot of them also come from here. And there's other sounds, so I have a lot of blends that I blend a lot of sounds. I blend the Nord with the OB6 and with the laptop. For example, on this sound here, you're hearing, this is the sound I use for Out of the Darkness, one of Steven's songs. That's the Nord, giving me a nice pulse. And then I have a we have this sound, which is OB6, Nord, and laptop. We have this. So that's a combination of Native Instruments contact with the glockenspiels and the strings, along with some nice pad sounds from the Nord and the OB6. I also do a lot of straight strings, which are all mostly contact. And I use the lower keyboard to change the articulations. I can go from this nice legato to a more staccato sound, to a tremolando, to a pizzicato, and I combine them in a line like something like this. This is so I can play realistic sounding string lines, and sometimes I double them with a little bit of glockenspiel and a little bit of tremolando. So that's the blend thing that I'm doing all the time with all the different sounds. And last but not least, we've got the Haken Continuum, which Stephen calls Irving, because that's the name he likes. I'm using this. This is an incredibly expressive instrument. I'll show you a little bit of what I do on it. It's mostly kind of an expressive cello/viola texture. So that's kind of cool. But that's featured on a song called Under the Gun. And the sort of non-Western sound, a little bit of Arabic-y kind of sound to it, which I could also just say is, poor intonation on my part. This thing will take a lifetime to master, but I've been having fun with it. And anyway, so it's become a featured part of that one song and possibly other ones in the set. But anyway, it's a lot of fun to play. So that's basically the rig. It's a whole lot of fun to use, and it's very easy for me to get around. And again, it goes back to one of the reasons I've gone digital with the Hammond is I found that now that I've been able to master it to get the tones I want, I found that I can cut across a 15-piece band. We have 5 horn players, 3 backing vocals, drums, bass, guitar, percussion, and a second keyboard player, as well as Stephen himself. So that's a lot of musicians and a lot of textures on stage to cut through. And this thing cuts through with flying colors. It's got unprecedented realism as far as the way the key bed works. The Leslie can play at a very controlled volume, and I can get the really loud, dirty sound without the loudness. So that's one of the reasons I use it, and it's a whole hell of a lot of fun to play. So thanks for watching and for listening. You can catch Little Stephen and the Disciples of Soul on tour this fall across the USA, showing solidarity with teachers everywhere and promoting music education in our schools. Any questions you have, you can contact me via Keyboard Magazine or by you can reach me on Facebook, just under my name, Andy Burton, or Andy Burton Music on Twitter and Instagram. Again, I welcome anyone's curiosity. I'm here to educate and inform and entertain. So, thanks for watching.